In the first version of this animation, I roughed in the character and then I added the secondary action, the hair on a separate layer. The second pass was to forget about the hair and just tie down the character. This is what the character looks like when we do a beauty pass over it and make it clean enough that this could be used as the final animation. So in this part, I'm going to tie down the hair because if we look at the hair, just add it on here, you'll see it's rough. It looks nice though, it has extra shimmer to it, but it is very, very rough. So let's see about the process of hair tie down. Again, we're working in Krita, the free animation and design program. So if you're familiar with Photoshop type programs, extremely similar and very easy to adapt to. So in the layer panel, I'm going to make a new layer. It's up here, paint layer 1. I'll call it hair tie down. So little housekeeping on the character. I want to make sure that as I'm working on layers, I don't get confused. Right click on the tie down layer of the character, and actually we'll call that one character tie down. We'll right click on that and go layer style, and let's make it blue. Color overlay. This is just like in Photoshop. Go to normal, pick a nice blue, and then we should see blue. And I think if it doesn't go blue all the way through, we just click this FX icon here on and off. And now you can see the layering. So I do have a layer here, the kind of the white layer. We don't need that right now. Let's get rid of that. And this little push pin here, I can hide it so it doesn't clutter the layer timeline. We're going to work on this hair tie down here. Let's right click on that and just give it a fake color for now, make it red. And we can see this layer here is red. It just helps if you get visually confused. You can see the red layer here. So again, we're working on the red layer, and I want to, let's make the hair layer as well a little fake color too. Let's say orange and make it normal. And you see now the hair is orange. And again, we can switch this on and off by toggling the effect switch. So I just want to be able to work without accidentally drawing on the wrong layer, which is really easy to do. So let's select our brush. Go to the brush panel. You have a brush presets down here. If you don't see the animation timeline, it's under settings, dockers, and you have all your dockers here, your different panels. These are my custom brushes. You can have all kinds of brushes of your own. I do have links in the previous movie. I'll link to that below of how I set up my brushes. But I like something that's kind of a scraggy line. It feels like a pencil. You can see how rough my original one was, so I'm going to definitely have to improve that a bit. Now if I hide the hair layer, gives me a better idea of what it's going to look like. Hitting E on the keyboard to activate the eraser turns your brush into an eraser. You can see it up here. E to go back to brush, so I can tie that down. You'll see also I'm working with an opacity here with my brush, and I can change that if I feel it's a little too timid. But I kind of like about a 50 to a 30% opacity. Once you feel like it's getting better, I can go in and tighten it. Okay, so I have a choice now. I can copy this onto one layer or keep it on a separate layer. I'm going to keep it on a separate layer because I think it gives us more freedom. If we mess this up, we can change it. It's kind of working to the strength of working digitally, which this would be a real pain to do back in the day if we were working on paper. So let's see if I can copy this area of the blue. Hit the L for the lasso tool. Maybe I can copy that from Krita, Control C. And I want to make sure I'm copying from the character tie down layer, which is this. Control C. I'll go, and you see the selection mask is being enabled here. Let's go back to the hair tie down, and hopefully it puts it on the right layer. Edit, paste into active layer. So that way you can copy an exact duplicate of the ear, so we have a 100% match of one layer to the other. So the only other thing I want to do here is tidy that up a little bit. I'm hitting 5 on the keyboard to reset my rotation. I do have another movie back in my original series on Krita about how to set up rotation and zoom shortcuts so they match the ones in Photoshop, which I really like. And again, the links to that will be below. Okay, so that's frame number 1. So we can proceed to reactivate the orange layer now. And if you've watched my earlier movie on how I did the hair layer, I did it straight ahead. So I would do the first drawing on number 1, and actually I've forgotten to make an actual drawing frame here for animation. So I click this button and it's bumped it to the 0 frame. Let's drag that to number 1. And some housekeeping just to make sure the clip starts on number 1. This is very, very annoying. Clip should always start at number 1. So anyway, we're at number 1, and now I want to replicate my original rough process when I do the tie downs. I would not go from 1, then 3, then 5, then 7. That would be adding wiggly motions to the line. So what I want to do is go to the next frame. I'll make an empty keyframe, and then I just replicate as best I can from here to here. And the other thing too, you see I've forgotten to put the hair in here on the hair layer. So again, we're on the hair tie down layer. Let's draw that in. Here's another design thing. Avoid parallels. else. So interesting shapes will look like that, or they will look like this, but you want to avoid shapes that look like that. That's boring. That's a big design no-no. So it's one or the other. And the other thing too is to draw through. So this line here will be, so I think the best way of doing it will be about like this. Let's just keep it simple. And then I'm going to just delete all that. And again, I'm going to try to copy stuff from the character tie down layer, just where we're going to close that shape off. Control C, go to the hair tie down, paste into active layer. I should make a shortcut for that sometime. Okay. So now we go to number 5 and we continue. I've set A and S on the keyboard as my shortcuts. We're going to the next animation key. So let's just copy as much we can of the original orange layer now. We can take the opacity down a bit too if you want to feather it in. The other thing that we can do to augment this, depending on how loose and stiff we want the hair to be, we can do a reversal like that. So you know what? Let's do that because I think it'll loosen it up a lot and it gives us something interesting to do in this movie as well. So see where I'm hovering with this point here and I go to here. We have two different ways of doing this. We could have it flip like that, as if it's flipping like a whip, like up and above, or we could keep it stiffer, like he's got mousse in his hair, right? And then it would maybe not do as much of that. So these drawing decisions affect the material property of the hair and how it behaves. So we have to make a decision and be brave. So on the interests of being interesting, I'm going to do a reversal and bring it up to here. Now I can get rid of that little reference dot. Now when you do these hair shapes, it's tempting to end up with stuff like this. That's going to possibly get you into weak designs. So I figured out for my own purposes early on, C shapes and S shapes of different kinds are the easiest way to go. They give you more control. They're clean to look at. So the next point that I'm going to have to follow is this point here. Where does that go? We can, again, many choices. We can actually have this one. Maybe it's a bit lighter. So maybe that point comes to here. We can even do things like put temporary letters on here, A and B. So if I was handing this on to an assistant or an in-betweener, I would want them to have some idea about which point is which, because I know, but a follow-up artist might not. So we can, this point here then, where are you? We'll call it C, even though they're out of sequence. So C could be just disappearing. That could just disappear into everything here. But there is another way we can kind of get that C shaping, and that would be something like this. So it's sort of blending and disappearing more elegantly into the character, into the body of the hair. It's more like a liquid, the way all the little strands work together. I'm already liking the way that's looking. I want to take the hair reference layer down in opacity a little bit, and that way we can see the hair tie down layer a little better. And we also have this point here, we'll call that D. Where does D go? If B flipped up, then there's a very good chance the entire body could be starting to break apart here. Any number of ways we could handle that again. We might get into some ugly shapes here. I don't like these kind of M shapes. My personal preference is to avoid them. You might like them, that's fine. But I'm going to just keep this as a stronger C shape like that. We can also break it up. So we have this here, we'll call you E. So that'll be E to here, and that'll be D. And we also want to make sure that we're not losing volume, because losing volume will look very strange very quickly. So it doesn't have to be 100%, but just reasonably close. That image is starting to look a little fiddly to me. So what I'm going to do is bunch the B up a little more here. So they're just starting to break apart a little more. That looks better, actually. It's a nicer shape. The other thing to watch out for too is that you have a nice sort of irregularity to these different shapes, that they're not all the same size, and that gives a little more graphical texture. Not a material texture, but just in terms of where the line weight is going. It just makes it look more interesting and more natural. And there's another little trick that we can do here as well, and you'll see a lot of this in classic Disney and Blue, which is we can start breaking off like strands of hair if we want to really go for that more naturalistic look. Now it's starting to get a little bit like liney here, and that's fine. I'm going to let that go. This would be the very, very typical look that you would see in like classic animation, and I happen to like it. I like the multiple line look. I would definitely tighten it down for like final, but it has a nice feel to it. Now let's switch off the hair layer, and now I can toggle. Am I gaining volume? And I think I am. Like if you look at this mass here compared to what's before, granted his head's coming down, so we should be seeing a little more, but there's definitely too much stuff going on here. So let us go in and again do something that would have involved like an actual redraw if we were working with physical media. I'm going to move it down just a little bit, and now I can compare. That's looking a lot better. So the slight increase can be justified by the geometry of the head moving down, but it's not gaining like a so much that it feels like his head is ballooning in size. Whoops, let me undo that. And then I want to just clean this up here. Whoopsie, I'll take you down. All right, let's go. And let's go to the next one. And you'll see if I reactivate the hair layer, I've put gray. We can right click on any of these and pick different colors. My color code is to use gray to signify a keyframe and red a breakdown. So in this case, it's just keyframe. I'm not going to color them yet, but let's make a new empty here. And make sure I'm on the right layer. Right. So we have a lot of drag at this point. And here we have, like, we've reversed into an S-curve, going to reverse again here into something like this. And that's really going to make the hair feel loose. And we can have all these strands bunching up. Not so much that I hide the ear maybe, but let's see. And I think I was gaining a lot of volume here as well. The back of the head, I was getting a bit sloppy on the rough pass, but I was just keeping it loose back then. This is why we call this tie down. We are tying it down. And once I've used the reference, I don't need it anymore. So I'll switch that off. We're going to have the hair coming out the back here just as it is, peeping out like a triangle there, and we want this dragging here to break the silhouette, not be tangled up too much here, so we have a nice kind of grouping, but it's still reading as a big flowing, like Pocahontas hair. Glenn Keane, when he animated Pocahontas, went absolutely berserk with the hair animation, did some beautiful stuff with it. And again, I can't speak for how he did it, but the way I kind of got my work to loosen up was to do straight ahead. Just don't worry about pose to pose, and do the character first and then go back and do all your clothing and hair and anything else, all the secondary follow-on stuff, and then you can go every 4 frames, every 5, every 6 frames, whatever your chosen beat is, and it really loosens you up a lot. So I think I might see this like little triangle here. I might want to have that sort of popping out here, perhaps. Let's see, let's taper this one in just a bit. And then the next one is another 4 frames on, make an empty. Let's switch on our reference hair layer. And I'm just going to keep going forward here. I'll just scrub through frame by frame. So right, the hair's going to slam in now and hit around here. Make an empty there. I think I've accidentally deleted something, so there we go. So easy to do. I don't know if you noticed, but I accidentally deleted that hair level, so I'm just going to very quickly put that back. We have our empty frame here. So this is going to be pretty much where we kind of settle now. I think this one, yes, that we're 1 away from the final position. It's a little bit tricky, so what I'm going to do actually is draw on this frame here, just temporarily, because this is when the head stops moving, just to get this line and this line here, and we want that ear to be mapped onto all the drawings that I'm going to do following. So let's go to the character tie down, Control C, go back up to the hair tie down layer, edit, paste into active layer. Really like that feature. And then we can continue drawing, and we know we're locked in now, right? So, and I think if I go to this frame, it'll be slightly different. So let's see here, make an empty frame here. And same thing on this one. I'm going to copy that ear because we're going to register our hair to that, and run the character tie down layer, copy it from there, go to the red layer, edit, paste into active, done. So now when I go forward, I can see where I'm heading into. Again, watching the volume here. All right, so we go from this one to that one. Now notice how, because I regard this little pocket as a little tricky, I'm just going to do some lighter lines. Hide the hair rough, put it back on for this, and I think we're going to go forward. At this point, we see how we slam the character in, and the character then is held. So what I'm going to do is just duplicate this ear and the back of the hair here, and then we're going to animate everything else other than that. So rather than redraw this over and over and over again, I'm going to copy and paste it. So I want to make sure it's fairly dark, not too light. That's fine, and copy that. Edit, paste into layer, edit, paste into layer, and so. And actually, because I'm continuing to animate on every 4 frames, I don't want to litter the whole timeline with these. So we'll just I'll just drop them over the grays here. I don't know why it's turning. So every time I did that, it got darker. Let me try this again. I'll make an empty layer, edit, paste into active layer, empty layer, paste into active layer, and so on. I'm not going to worry about the empty in-betweens for now. I'm just going to keep heading forward, and I'm going to make sure that this point here is where the hair is locked in. We don't want this to wiggle. That would look weird. You'll notice I'm not really putting A, B, C, D, E, and Fs on these tufts of hair just yet because it's moving so quickly here. Honestly, I don't think your eye could track it. So we have a little leeway with loosening up a little bit. That's going to kick back in at the end though. Let's see pretty soon. So we might do a little reversal here as this part of the hair kind of feels a little weight, and then we get a nice design there. Now again, I said we'd be getting back into letter land. That point there will be A, that'll be A. We can rub these letters out in a little bit. That's B, that'll be B. Switch off the hair reference, and let's put it back on, see where we did here. Okay, so it gathers. So on this one here, I'm going to soften it a little bit. I think I was a little too sloppy if we follow through. It feels a little jittery at the end, so let's fine tune this. So here we have momentum, right? Watch the momentum, moving fast. Where did the momentum go? So it kind of came down too quick here. So what I'm going to do is do a little reversal. So we have A is here. On the next frame it's there. That's a lot of speed. It's not going to just go away. So the A point should be going from here to there, and on the next key I think it should be up here, and this gives us an excuse for like a little reversal, as full reversal now. The S curve turns into a C, and the same thing with the B. The B is here and the B is there. That's a lot of energy. If you think about just physics for a moment, in a very short space of time the point is moving from there to there. How on earth would it just suddenly fall? So my rough was just too fast, so I didn't think about that. So let's put the B up here. So if we follow that track, it should be around there. I'm making a real mess using these little check marks everywhere, so I'll fix them in a minute. About here. And we can have all the hair beginning to bunch here as well. So I'll switch off the hair reference, and let's do some housekeeping and get rid of all the algebra. Okay, and we have this little tuft here. We'll call that one C, and your brain's going to read that as C. Let me get rid of that thing. Okay, so Mr. C is going from here to there to here. Where'd it go, right? So I think we should have some little motion of the C curve still up here, but he's slowing down at last. It's all starting to bunch. All the strands of hair are clobbering one another. So let's play this through. Okay, starting to look much softer now. So the other thing I want to do is to get the end pose down, because I'm working into that. So let's see where we're going to finish. Even if you are working straight ahead, it's common to have the first and the last, so you can proceed forward straight ahead, but at least then you know where you're going. So I'm going to want the hair to bunch down into something that looks like the pose he started from. So he has all these little tufts here, so you think it would more or less resemble that. Let me see here. So he's got like 1, 2, 3 or 4 different things breaking off. So we could have one there, second one there, and maybe a third, because he's in profile, so it's a slightly different angle. I'm going to erase some of the junk. I'm going to put the eraser on 100%. Let's switch off the reference layer, put my drawing back on. Want to make sure that this area here does not make another design sin, which would involve making a tangent with the nose. That would be bad. Now, even in this case, it's not making a tangent. It's still sort of close to making a tangent. So that was one of our big things to watch out for when I worked for Bluth. And I, to this day, I'm allergic to them. So I'm going to pull this back up just a little bit. And I can use the erase tool to clean up some of my more tentative rough lines there. That's fine. So you're not going to confuse the point tipping with the nose there. All right. And I think I have one more to do here. So let's see. One here. And then we drag and reverse. Heavy drag there. And it begins to gather here. Overshoot. Reverses. Loses some energy. And so this one here could do a couple of things. We could just very softly just make this a glorified in-between into that. Or we could bring it down faster, a bit lower than this, and then have a bounce up. So let me play it through first. I'm tempted to just soften it in. And we could add another, if we wanted it to bounce up from here, we could probably add another key there. Let me just do a very simple in-between here first, because that's my instinct. I don't think we have the time at this to kind of bounce it down. I'm putting onion skin on, the little light bulb here. And we can control how many drawings here we are seeing, and I just want these two, the one on either side. So the green layer is the first drawing, and the red layer is the green layer is the final drawing, and the red one is the one we're coming from. The more I look at this shape here, the more I dislike it. So what I'm going to do is break that up a little bit better. I can tighten this up a little better later, but that's okay for now. Back to the sort of in-between. And I think this will actually be easier without the backlight. There's so much going on. So let's see. So we have this point here, which I think you're A, right? Yep. So put the onion back on. To here, loses energy, and it's going to come back down. So I think that A point should be somewhere here. So you can see how you're working it out like a little puzzle. And we have this little thing here, which I am not sure about. I think it's just a bit too much. So I'm going to still have that shape break a little bit, but just not as extreme as that. So I don't want it to get confusing with all the other stuff that's happening here. It's just a little breakaway. That's all this is. And let's go back here. So I'm not going to worry about that for now. I just want the main mass of the hair going into that A point is here. And then we can just break that little tuft off here. So this point here will be this point here. Okay, that was B or whatever, but we'll just call it X, and that's going to be X. So yeah, this thing couldn't come down any further than that. Would be much, I think it's going to look much better as a little soft cushion. Let's play that by itself right now. Yeah. So we do have in-betweens that are going to go in to soften that a little more as well. And I just want to make sure that we are cushioning a bit more. So again, this point here, I'm going to tighten it down a bit, is there. And we're working it into this final pose here. So it's going from there to here to there. So I think we can just give it a bit more, just a little more weight. That way when the in-betweens go in, there's more of a slow in. Now I'm just going to tighten up some of these very, very tentative poses or hair drawings that I did earlier. And I'm putting in some stray hairs here just to open it up a bit. So I might want to tease one in here too, so they don't just pop in and pop off, and then we can sort of disappear them a little bit. Again, watch carefully any kind of classic Disney or Bluth movie and you'll see a lot of that kind of stuff. Sometimes they do pop off, so that can be a problem. It's very easy for cleanup to have lost control of them, and they can be a little erratic, even in the best of productions. So, but just watch out for it. Adding one there. So when I look at this area here, see how we have this line and this space, it looks really nice, and then it becomes this big area here. I think I'm missing a line there, so I need to add that back in. So something that just hints at those two areas bunching together, B and B2, let's call it B and B2. So I think that'll work. And here as well, we're kind of losing it. So just want to hint at that clumping, and let's take a point. Now look at this point here. That's a lot of space, slows in, and then it comes back down. I think here we should reverse it. So this point here, let's just do like a little reversal instead. I think that'll look a lot more naturalistic. Otherwise the hair looks like a rigid body, and it's not. It's very, very susceptible to wind and to reversals and all that. Now we might need to ultimately add a couple of in-betweens here to soften in. I'm not going to worry about that until I see the final thing. See what we can get away with. Let's play it again. Not too bad. There's a bit of wiggling here at the corner where I thought there would be, even with all the cutting and pasting. So let's see if we can tighten that. So I'm hovering over this point right here. That's where we need to join that. Let's try one more time. Better. The tiniest, you saw how little that was. It was just enough to jitter, and it's only the length of the head of the tablet that I'm drawing with. So the next thing we need to do is just do all the in-betweens. At this point, I'm going to put the rest of this stuff on the Patreon for Patreons, because they're the people paying for this. And if you want to see the whole thing uncensored in its full gritty glory, it's over there. Hopefully you've had enough of the freebie to get the gist of what I've been doing with this. So to the Patreon with you if not, and then I'll wrap up here. Okay, cheers, bye. I don't have a sponsor, so if you want to support my work and help it to continue, you can subscribe to my Patreon. I'm making new animation projects week by week and providing animation assets that can be downloaded and used. I also have a very large collection of tutorials in the LinkedIn Learning Library covering animation and design, and I'm putting all the links to these in the notes below.